Welcome to the Halama Fantasy Football League weekly recap. Let's just go right into it. Let's not waste any time. Let's go to the first game. Me and Milo versus Prince Llama. Look at how close this game was. 132.14, 137.9. All signs pointed to me winning the game early on until Jerry Jacobs decided to have a 48.6 point game. So I got destroyed by Jacobs. He was able to completely overtake me. And then it didn't even matter. Say for instance, I played more points from Deontay Foreman instead of say DeAndre Swift. That's still not enough. I barely, Eric would still edge me out with that. But just overall with the teams, in my case, I had to sub out Justin Fields, who was out, with Trevor Lawrence. Turned out to be a good play, 29 points. Amon-Ra St. Brown showed out, 23.5. DK Metcalf did a pretty good, 14.5. Tony Pollard had a down week after his big game the previous week. Jamal Williams still continues to be consistent. I think at one point, I don't know if it is now, but he was leading the league in touchdowns. Dalton Schultz had a big game. 4 receptions for 31 yards, but 2 touchdowns, 17.1. Actually, all the tight ends showed out. They were playing whack-a-mole, and they were having a good time. And they were able to get a division win. DeAndre Swift had only 8.8. Myers had 10.8. Baltimore D only 6.1. And then for Eric, Joe Burrow had 21 points. And Lazard, he was kind of the afterthought. Eric had already won by that point. And the extra 3.4 didn't really mean anything. Jalen Waddle had 11 points. Nick Chubb had a big game, 22.3. Dalvin Cook had a downer, 9 points. Taysom Hill only 3.1. Again, Jacobs had that huge game. Ryan Suckup 6.7. Kansas City D 11.6. Off the bench, most notable is Miles Sanders having a 31.6 game. So any other combination, and yeah, Eric has had just some outstanding plays by a couple of guys, right? So Chubb, Jacobs, and Sanders, and it averages out because of some of the other guys who weren't as good, like Dalvin Cook, and guys like Deontay Johnson, who's just basically having a down year. Okay, next up, Automatic versus Mediocre Minions. This was a landslide victory for Jeremy, who is having a lot of momentum with his high scores, and Darren had a down week. As far as Darren goes, Derek Carr only had 25.5, Mike Evans only had 4.1, Juju Smith-Schuster had 5.3, Ezekiel Elliott was the better of the running backs that day, 17.6, Chuba Hubbard only 8.2, Evan Ingram only 0.9, Amari Cooper had 12.9, pretty decent. Justin Tucker had a big game, 16.5, even though they lost by 1 point. New England had 2.9. And then off the bench, he's got guys who are just not playing right now. Dan Jefferson actually did pretty decent for a Rams receiver. And Chris Claypool, 6.1. He had a nice catch, but kind of limited, especially with a backup quarterback. And then for Jeremy, Justin Herbert had a excellent game. This is more like 2021 Justin Herbert. Maybe, like we said, the receivers are really improving the situation there. Keenan Allen seems to be making a difference. Stephon Diggs had a decent 17.7 early on Thursday. Chris Olave, 8.7, a little bit underwhelming. Derrick Henry only had 14.9 points. He had one big, huge run and could have had an additional 6 points, but he fumbled it at the goal line, only for Treylon Burks to pick it up and take that touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco. He's the lead back now, and he's doing really well. 22 rushing attempts, 69 rush yards, a rushing touchdown, and 1 catch for 17. TJ Hawkinson had a good game, 12.8. Cordero Patterson, 10.06. McPherson, 11.5. And the Miami D, dominant 19. And on the bench, he has a solid... look at these guys. These are high floor guys. Singletary, 9.9 is okay. Michael Pittman had a good game with that touchdown, 15.6 tonight. And Tyler Lockett had 14.3, also with a touchdown. So Jeremy maintains his number 1 standing by holding serve and winning. Blitz and Ritz versus James Swag Team. This was a very close game also. Richie beats James 122.04 to 117.64. Kyler Murray had a decent game, 28.74. Even though they lost on that 2-point conversion at the very end, Godwin had a good game, 23 points. And TJ McLaurin only 7.4. Etienne, he had half a point. So I think he got hurt. I think that's what happened. James Conner had a good game also, 23 points. Cole Kmet only 4.2. White from Tampa Bay had 16.8. Graham Gano turns out to be a good pickup after that one bad game from him, because this is his second consecutive good game, 13.4. Dallas D only 5. Off the bench, David Montgomery had 14.2. Christian Kirk only 6.2, even though Jags played pretty well. Dameon Pierce is kind of trending down lately. He has 3.6. Alvin Kamara also not that great of a game with 6.7. Jamar Chase was hurt and out, and Aaron Rodgers had 12.7, and he actually had to leave the game, so that might be the end of the line for Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if they want to keep playing him. He was trying to keep them in the playoffs. They kept it close for a bit, then fell behind, and then they had to put in Love. They kept it interesting, but that was Philly was gonna win no matter what. For James, Tom Brady had 21.04. It looks like that's exactly what he was projected to have. Hopkins, a good 16.7. Tyreek Hill, a little bit down with 12.1. Brian Robinson had a showdown game, big game, 21.3. It's so weird how, I don't know. I mean, they take turns, right? It's between Robinson and their other running back. Today it was Robinson's turn, and so maybe it's good in that the mileage isn't too high, and so they're relatively healthy, and he had a good game. James benefited from that, but it just wasn't enough to help him get the win. The funniest thing about him was what he went viral for was his big hat. So he has a friend who makes big hats. If you need a big hat, let Brian Robinson up. Christian McCaffrey only had 8 points. I don't know if he got hurt. Let's see. He has knee irritation, some kind of MCL injury. I don't know. That's bad news. That's kind of worrisome. George Kittle only had 4.1. CeeDee Lamb had a good game, 14.9. Badgley had a decent 7.6. Carolina D actually did pretty good, 11.9. And off the bench, Daniel Jones, 16.92. Nothing special. Brandon Ayuk, okay 9. Sky, and everyone else is underwhelming. Kept it close, but Richie gets that win. Next up, Brownsville Jets versus Mike B versus Mike L. Mike may have forgot his team because he didn't play a wide receiver. Lamar Jackson had one of his better games of the year. I don't know, he's been trending down, but he needs more from him. Deebo Samuel has been a letdown this year. Only 6 points today. Austin Eckler had a decent 20 points. Only 5 rushing attempts. But a lot of receptions where that's all the value is with him. Kareem Hunt had only 3.1. Tyler Higbee did not play. Kenyon Drake had 0.4. Carlson, okay, 11.1. New York Giants, 3.9 points. Off the bench, um, he had some pretty good scores from McKenzie, 19.5. And then for Mike L, Jalen Hurts also had one of his better games. He had I don't know, this might be the second highest rushing yards of the season behind Justin Fields. He had 157 rushing yards and pretty decent passing game to go with it. So that was his racehorse in this one. Again, Keenan Allen has helped kind of reinvigorate that Charger offense, 13.4. Curtis Samuel only 1.7. Latavius Murray had a nice game, 11.6 for him. James Robinson looks like he was hurt. Travis Kelce has an okay 13.7. Marcus Valdez Scantling only 7.6. Butker had a big game, so you've been hanging on to him, and he's rewarded you today. And then Minnesota has a 9.8. Off your bench, Deion Carter had a really good game, 17.8, and Younghae Koo also pretty decent for our kicker, 11.5. And Mike Williams is hurting out. Leonard Fournette is hurting out. No bye weeks this week, so if the guys didn't play, they're just either hurt or whatever. Next up, Morgan versus Aaron. This turned out to be a really close game and very close for Morgan to win it. Josh Allen had a big game, 34.32, including that game winner, getting them to field goal range. He had a big pass to get them into field goal range for them to get that win. Carlos Sutton, 10.5, okay. Darius Slayton, 7.8. Jonathan Taylor, this was the one. This was the Monday night game. Taylor was there, had a end zone. They had, I don't know, first or second and goal. Handed it off to him. He fumbled it, and Pittsburgh recovered it. This happened early in the game, so there was still time to account for it. But had he scored that touchdown, that's an additional 6 points with whatever percentage of the yards and carries that includes. That closes this gap and overtakes Aaron and gives him the win. But sadly, that fumble cost him the game. Also, may have cost the Colts the game as well. So, tough one there. Gibson, he's the other running back from Washington. He only had 9.84 because the flavor of the week, again, was Robinson. Pratt Firemuth only had 5.4. He was the other guy who was trying to help get those points to catch Aaron, but it just wasn't enough. Kenneth Walker had a decent game, 17.8. Ran really, really hard. And had one of the most hard-fought and well-earned touchdowns. Nick Folk had a huge game, 16.8. Washington D only 7.8. Off your bench, you had some nice scores. A.J. Brown, okay, 11.6, but in particular, Perrin, he's a feature back, right? So, in just watching tape, I don't know. Gibson does look okay too, but I think Cincy's the better team. So, with no Joe Mixon, Perrin looks really good. He had 17 rushing attempts, 58 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and 4 catches. So, he's also there for the passing game. For Aaron, Pat Mahomes had for him, average to slightly below average game. Justin Jefferson had a huge game, 24.94. He even threw a touchdown, I think. Did he throw a touchdown? No, it wasn't a touchdown, but he did throw a pass. That's what it was. T. Higgins, also a big game. Maybe it defaults to him being number 1 when Jamar Chase is out. Saquon Barkley did okay, 14.3. Kyron Williams, 8.6, which is okay, but those are some nice points considering it's coming from the Rams. Njoku had a nice game too, 11.4. Palmer only 8.1. Bass had a decent kicker game, 12.2, and the Buffalo D only 8.8. And then off the bench, um, nothing much except Geno Smith, who outscored Pat Mahomes. You don't really expect that, but he had a decent game. And then no Dobbins, no Goddard. And then the last game, Daddy Dandy Milch team versus Super Mariota. This was a rough one for Brad. This is one of the lowest scoring games of the season, I think. For Gary, though, he had a pretty strong game. Kirk Cousins had 25.96. Devontae Adams had 10.9. He had he was targeted a lot. Had good catches and had some amazing catches, but didn't really find the end zone. Gabe Davis had only 5.8. Ramondre Stevenson had a pretty good game, 16.4. Aaron Jones kind of showed out. This is a little bit more vintage Aaron Jones with 18.6. Mark Andrews is back with 9 points. Christian Watson, man, he's a touchdown machine. Like he has 6 touchdowns now ever since coming back from injury. So he's a dangerous receiver, and so the future is looking bright for Green Bay, and especially with Jordan Love throwing and throwing, it looks good. And maybe that's why Aaron Rodgers is like trying so hard to like tough it out and play, because maybe he knows he can hear the footsteps coming. Jake Elliott had 13.5. New York Jets had 8.8. And then off the bench, AJ Dillon was another big one, 17.1. I guess they had a really good running game. DJ Moore had a big receiving game, 18.3. Treylon Burks also 15 points. He's the only one he kind of vultured 6 points, literally in the same play when Henry was trying to get that touchdown and he got stripped, and then Treylon Burks recovered, so he gets that fumble recovered touchdown. Tampa Bay D only 7.4. And then for Brad, tough break. He has not been able to find a good quarterback. Mariota has been kind of mediocre for even a running quarterback. 16.96. He played Robinson, but another disaster with the Rams, because I think Robinson is now out for the season too. He got hurt. Myers only had 7.7. Najee Harris. Oh, that's another scary one because he had to leave the game too. But good guy Najee Harris. Even though he was hurt, he toughed it out, came back, said, I got to get points for my guy Brad, and he got a touchdown. And then after that, I think he was out. Wilson had 13, which is good. Knox only had 2.7. Cam Akers only 4.5. Bright for him. Yeah, so that's all the recaps. Like we said, we're going to keep it short. I did want to kind of mention, I don't know, I've been playing with this idea. I keep going back and forth with it. But keepers. Do you guys want to go back to keepers? Some form of it? Again, like I said, our league has always been about the draft, right? It's a big day. So being able to pick high and quality players at the top of the round is like key, right? And then plus, it's nice to refresh everything. But with all these injuries and things, and it made me think of like trying to figure a way to create value out of players that are injured or players that are just in the waiting. So the only way you can do it is to try to incorporate it with draft capital, right? Because you have to be able to trade for future picks with players. That's the only way to make it work. And it allows you to try to find ways to improve your team even when you're away. But I still don't want to get away from that, the big drafting. So one idea that I had was maybe locking the top 2 rounds. So maybe like have a top 25, whatever the list of top 25 is. They are on the no keeper list, but you can maybe take guys who are maybe younger players who are being groomed to be stars in the future, and they might have some draft capital, or guys who were injured and who have taken a hit, like this year, right? Cooper Cup, guys like him. Like, if you can hang on to, well, see, I don't know how that would work because he's probably going to be top 25 anyway, so you want to keep him. But maybe someone who's kind of borderline, but the injury hurts him. Like, I don't know if what's his name, Brees Hall, does he crack the top 25? But then he has some draft capital. You can trade him for draft capital. That's just an idea. So I don't know if you want to try to reincorporate some kind of keepers. It'll be like, yeah, you're just gonna have to be locked out at the top, or you can go back to the original keepers, or we can do like, I don't know, maybe for guys like Brad and Mike B, you're like, nah, we don't want keepers, we want a fresh start, because a tough break for them. It just so happens that their teams just bomb. Like, you take a guy like Russell Wilson, expecting him to be good, and he's absolutely awful and dreadful. You take guys who are on the Rams team because they are fresh off of the Super Bowl, you expect some kind of value from them because they were a good team, they won a Super Bowl, but you don't expect them to fall off a cliff like that. It's just kind of wild. There's a lot of changes and factors, so I don't know. If you want to try to create some intrigue and find incentive to make trades, or to like hang on to certain players who have value, it might make it more interesting. That's all. So let me know what you guys think, if you want to try to do some kind of keeper thing, or if you just like the no keepers league, whatever. We try to find different ways to improve the league. All right, so that's it. See you later.